Can't even be bothered to get out the station before I do the intro. Hello and welcome to another Tweedy Outdoors video. Sorry, it's Tring again. Mark from my local pub will not be pleased. I'm in the vicinity of Ivinghoe Beacon once more. I don't know if I'll actually get to Ivinghoe Beacon today, as I only have about 4 hours before I need to be back here in Tring and back on a train, unfortunately. So I'm just going to find some bit of countryside nearby where I can sit and perhaps set up a tarp, because it's going to be a rainy day, maybe even thunder later. I'm going to cook something approximating Boston baked beans, but as ever it's going to be some sort of weird compromise version of it. Shall I just get the terrible gag out of the way right at the start? Sorry if this footage is a bit grainy. Looking very verdant here. That's probably on account of all the rain we've had. Not much of a view today, thanks to the rain. That barrow in Oldbury Nowers Wood. It's gratifyingly dank and dark in the woods here. Once again, not really a classic view there. Onto that bit of open access land now beyond Oldbury Nowers. And this is part of Grimm's Ditch, one of the many sections all over the country marked as Grimm's Ditch. Nice hawthorn tree there. Tempting to just string up a tarp here and be done with it. Do you want to see some bad tarp setup footage? There we go. It's not great, but it'll give me somewhere to shelter under if the rain does get a bit heavier. The plan for today is to make something approximating Boston baked beans. I believe what we call haricot beans here in the UK are the same thing that are referred to as navy beans in the US. And another really critical thing is molasses. One more thing, salt pork or bacon. I won't be using bacon. I'll be using some hideous substitute that no doubt you will all turn your noses up at, but just pretend, go along with me. In goes some oil, that's probably more than I really need. And put this rather unappealing looking bacon in there. I don't know about you, but I always like this moment where the flame flickers on. Keep it relatively low if possible. It smells nicer than it looks. Tomatoes can go in now. Might as well put the beans in now, I suppose. The eternal question when cooking tinned beans is whether to drain the liquid or not. It might add some flavour, but that water that beans have been sitting in a tin tends to be kind of starchy, so tempted to go half and half. Drain a bit and then keep the rest. There we go. Doesn't look hugely appealing, does it? But all of it gelatinous in the bottom. Well, I suppose the molasses could come in now. I think this can come in a more liquid form as well. A couple more additions which may or may not be traditional. Henderson's relish, which any of you from the north, from the sort of Sheffield area may be familiar with. It's, I think, a sort of distant cousin of Worcester sauce. Similar sort of flavour profile, but has the benefit of not containing anchovies. I can give a very liberal dose of that. Starting to go a reassuring brownish colour now, thanks to the molasses and the Henderson's relish. And perhaps one final touch, a few dashes of Tabasco. I've gone for the green one, which is a bit milder. I slightly prefer the flavour of this, actually. It's a bit less severe. But let's stir that in. And that's basically it for this incredibly simplified version. It, of course, wouldn't be a Tweedy Outdoors cooking segment without an entirely inappropriate wine pairing. Actually, for a change, not Gevrey Chambertin. This is an even more pretentious village from Burgundy, Vosne Romanée. I'll do all the tasting notes over on Burgundy with Tweedy. Is that going to be in that corner? It may not look incredibly elegant, but it has a lovely aroma coming off it of slightly sort of smoky smell, rich sweetness of the molasses. Terrible camera work. I'm probably at an angle, aren't I? Let's give this a taste. I think that is lovely. It's absolutely not haute cuisine, but it actually reminds me of teenage campfire cooking experiments of cooking tins of baked beans directly on a fire or directly on a camping stove, which I think is something I was talking to Awat about this in the comments a while back, that we used to just put, as a kid, tin cans directly on some heat source and heat things up in there. And of course these days everything has that sort of inner plastic coating to it, so it's generally not a good idea anymore, which is a shame. I'm sure in a simpler time Well, it probably wasn't very healthy then either, but it was a nice hack to be able to heat baked beans up directly in the can. So I'm getting some nice hints of smoky sort of flavour from that fake meat. And there's probably an additional hint of smokiness in that I'm sure this has ended up slightly burning on the bottom. We'll find when we get to the bottom. Whatever I cook in this pan with that gas stove, I end up burning it on the bottom. There's a sort of rich sweetness from the molasses, which I think gives a fantastic flavour to any dish where it just about belongs. Having a hard time with the tripod and all this long grass. Really doesn't want to stay up straight. That is nice. Quite a lot of umami, those savoury flavours in abundance. Lots of other interesting kind of smoky, spicy, rich, sweet edges to it. I doubt this will get a rave review in the comments, but I'm enjoying it. That's all that matters. I mean, I imagine your average cowboy would probably have used something possibly more akin to jerky when making this dish sort of out on the trail. The ingredients are mostly dried and shelf stable, so the beans you could have in big barrels, dried beans, and then just soak them overnight as and when you need them for cooking the next day. Similarly, some sort of dried meat could then go in to add a bit more protein, a bit more flavour. Something like jerky that would also be shelf stable. Somehow my fake bacon doesn't feel quite so out of place when compared to jerky, which is practically leather anyways. This is delightful at the moment. I haven't yet been disturbed. I'm in this sort of bowl here next to this hawthorn tree. The footpath goes somewhere down there and you've got to walk up the hill to find this little bowl. I'm really glad I got out today. I have to admit to being a tiny, I wouldn't say down in the dumps, but just going through one of those slightly sort of numb periods of what's the point of it all. Tuesday lunchtime, sit under a tarp, eating some baked beans and drinking some wine. Brilliant. Cheers. Hashtag leave no trace. Thank you, hawthorn tree. Feel an urge to at least walk to the brow of the hill here so I can perhaps see Ivinghoe Beacon from a distance, even if I'm not going to get there today. And off in the distance over there, good old Ivinghoe Beacon. I have to admit, I'm experiencing some reluctance around going home. Just got into the actual nice bit here. Open rolling hills. Probably should have pushed myself and done a bit more of a walk, shouldn't I, rather than just finding the first ditch I could and cooking my lunch there. Ivinghoe Beacon looks very, very tempting. Another day, I think. Alas. Oh well, back to Tring it is. I passed a bunch of young people. I don't know, were they teenagers or very early 20s? I'm not sure. This seems to be a running theme. This happened, was that last time I was in the Ivinghoe Beacon region. I don't know if they're doing quite a Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, but it was something of that ilk. A lot of them were wearing sort of high-vis vests and they'd been given a paper map with a route on it to follow, and they all seemed a little bit nervous and unsure. I guess they were sort of inner city kids probably that don't get out into the countryside very often. Shall I turn you around so you can get a sense of what the view is like from here? Probably skew with and some barbed wire. Is that more or less straight? It's probably not, is it? I can't be bothered with straight horizons. Life's too short to constantly be tilting a camera back and forth. It's only a matter of time before the next troop of those Duke of Edinburgh award scheme or whatever they were doing youths trudge past and say, why are you sitting there in a suit in the countryside drinking wine? The answer is because I can. I do like tree cover over a path like this. Not quite a hollow way, it's fairly flat on the base, but there's something of that feel to it. Right. At Tring, that's it for this video then. I am in a bit of a funny mood, but I hope some of that was of some entertainment value regardless. Thanks very much for watching. See you on the next one. Bye.